Today, this is Global Empowerment Team. This is Benny Bell with Surpass Real Estate Group and Global Empowerment Team. And today we have another special guest bringing some more value to all our listeners today. We are doing this a little later than normally on Thursdays. We're trying out this time since a lot of people are back to work, and just want to see if we'd be able to reach out and broaden our audience a little bit more at this time. So chime in if you're listening and let us know if you like this time better on Thursdays than 11 a.m. And just want to introduce my co-host, Khalil Macklin. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Your voice sounds like table butter right now. It just sounds good, man.
I'll take it.
I'm like, man, Benny needs to do some voiceovers on radio, but I'm doing good, man. It's hot, and I'm outside my man cave / office / weight room, but I'm excited about our guest as well. So thank you for your introduction. And Jasmine, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Really excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you.
Great. Yeah, I had a chance to speak with Jasmine earlier this week, and me and Khalil, it's one of those things where we actively reach out to our database to touch people and invite people to our call. And Jasmine was one of those people that kind of came up, and we didn't even have a conversation about Jasmine together. However, I called Khalil. I was like, hey man, I got this young lady on. She has a lot of value. She's connected with education. She has her own school. I mean, and just all these different accolades. And it was like, Khalil was like, wait, I spoke to Jasmine too. Like, I already got her book for the show. So it's one of those things where, we were both excited about having you today, Jasmine, and looking forward to diving in and talking about your business and how you're giving back to the community. So just real quick, I just want to read your bio so that way we can introduce you to our audience. So this is Jasmin Johnson. Jasmine is an educator, entrepreneur, fitness specialist, and financial professional. She is the founder of All Aspects Academy, a K-12 virtual hybrid independent school. She has over 10 years in public education and has taught in many communities in the San Francisco Bay Area, including Richmond, Oakland, Vallejo, and Hayward. Jasmine's mission is to make sure that every student has the opportunity to receive a personalized education that offers high quality academics, caters to their learning style, is culturally responsive, provides a vehicle to accelerate and reach their life goals effectively. Great. So how are you, Ms. Johnson?
I'm doing well. Really excited to be here.
Great.
Like Benny said, it's one of those things where Benny and I have such like mind and we're on such the same page as the things we want to provide for our community. And that's like a lot of times, that's not just our clients, that's our family, that's our actual community, like places that we live in, places that we grew up in, places that we do business in. So it surrounds more than just our immediate community. And like Benny said, to know that we both were of like mind to reach out to you separately, because as he said, he goes through his database and he finds people that he thinks that would be a great fit for the show. And 100 out of 100 times, they're a great fit for the show. And I do the same thing as I go through my database with people who I think can be beneficial and bring certain boulders and nuggets to our community. And to know that we both reached out to you contemporaneously, I thought it was pretty cool. And it speaks volumes to who you are and what you're trying to do and what you are currently doing for your community. And I'm happy to have you on the show. I'm happy to dive in further to what you do. But thank you for making time for us on this evening, okay?
Oh, definitely. I'm excited to get it out there and to tell everybody about my school. I'm really excited.
Well, let's do that. Let's dive in. So, All Aspects Academy. That's the name of the school. And like I mentioned earlier in your bio, it is a K-12 virtual hybrid independent school. So let's speak on that. What exactly is a virtual hybrid independent school?
So a virtual hybrid independent school. So I make it very clear that it's independent, meaning that we don't take money from people. There's no bureaucracy like the public school system. There's no company backing us to say or do certain things. So we're independent. So the focus is totally on whatever the student needs. There's no other ulterior motives. And virtual, everybody should be kind of familiar with that. If you're a parent, or even if you're not a parent, you've heard about it lately, where it is basically school online. So it's not, and what a lot of people think it is sitting on a Zoom for an hour with a bunch of classroom full of kids, 30 kids. It's not that. So basically what it is being able to reach students at their levels and personalize their education, dial it down to let's see how the student learns. Is this student a visual learner, or are they a, or are they a kinesthetic learner where they have to touch things? What type of learner are they? And what do they know? What do they don't know? So with virtual learning, it's accessible anytime. Students can get help. It caters to however the student learns. And the system's really smart. All the different courses they can take, they learn about how the student learns and it adjusts. So, that can't be done in a regular classroom. And it's a hybrid because once COVID blows over, we're gonna have kids meet together in small groups. So right now what I'm working on is a STEM lab. So we're gonna get some kids together, they'll build robots and code in person. And we also have other programs like, fitness. The kids will do fitness together. You don't have to have a huge group, but you can have a group of about 12 to 15 kids. They connect, they get that social outlet, and they learn about their bodies and get healthy. So that's where the hybrid portion comes in.
Nice. I have a really good friend of mine who I've known for 20 years plus, and she is a principal of several different schools up until now. She's starting a brand new school similar to what you're doing as well. And we were just having a conversation the other day about individualizing the curriculum for each and every student and where they are. And I was like, man, I mean, I'd only heard you speak of doing that up until that point in time. And we were talking about how the importance of it, but the huge task that it is as well, because if you have 300 students and individualizing that curriculum basically for each student. But if I'm hearing you correctly, you said there's like certain programs that kind of follow each student and their level and their path through the process to make sure that it helps individualize and make that curriculum even more personalized. Can you touch up on that?
Yeah, so basically when the kids come in, they get an assessment. So the family actually gets to pick the curriculum. They get to look at it and say, I think that'll work for my kid, or I don't think it'll work. So I have several curriculums they can choose from. Once they decide on one, it gives them an assessment. So that means it tells them exactly what grade level they're performing at and what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. And it's all based on the Common Core standards. Those are the national standards to basically, a few years ago, they changed them all up. Instead of California having their own standards and Texas having their own, nationwide. So wherever you go as a student, everything is pretty much the same. There's some additions and tweaks here and there, but they're pretty much the same. So pretty much if you're a third grader in Texas or a third grader in Florida, you're gonna be learning the same exact thing and be subject to the same thing as a student in Hawaii. So it tells me where the student is immediately and what strengths and weaknesses they have. So that's just amazing, because as a teacher, usually you'll have to pull that kid to the side and go, okay, if they have if they have issues reading, you got to listen to them read these words, and then you've got to have them write, and then you've got to determine, and that's based on a human, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If I don't have very good training, I can't tell what's wrong with this student or what I should use to fix the problem. These systems are built by people who have doctorate degrees, who have studied education for years. And so they're proven to work. The kids basically take these tests or they go along with their curriculum, and it identifies where their issues are. And then it'll tell me as, the teacher or the learning coach, and I'll be like, oh, wait, Donovan's having a problem with, adding, subtracting. Okay, but he's not having a problem with, doing this or doing that. So it'll give me exactly what that student is well at, does well at, and what he doesn't do well at, he or she.
Great. So it sounds like it's a system that's very dialed in on how to assess the children's learning abilities, and not necessarily abilities, their styles, their learning styles. Mm-hmm. What else is out there? What other school programs? Because listening to you speak, it sounds similar to a Montessori training, a Montessori school. So what are there differences between your school and a Montessori school, and what are those differences?
Well, Montessori is, and I've worked at a Montessori before during my student teaching years. So it was like a while back, about 11 years ago. And the Montessori that I worked at was in Hayward, and they had 2 teachers in the room, but you could not tell the students they were incorrect. And you had to wait. So the students were all over the classroom. There were not really very many desks. They could be up in the loft, they could be on the carpet, and they would have to come to you when they were ready to learn. So that's a little frustrating as a teacher when you're sitting there and you're seeing a kid just do this all day out the window, and you're going, they're not learning. Oh, but they haven't decided they wanted to learn yet. And I'm going, but she's a second grader. She's 8. What does she know? She doesn't know this,
Right,
or
right.
The child asks for help. They come to you, ask for help, and you can't mark on their paper that they're wrong. You can only ask them questions or tell them things so they can adjust their thinking. but you can't tell them they're wrong or mark it wrong. So that was always my struggle, because I'm going, if I don't tell you what's wrong, how can you know what's right? You know, I know we want to spare feelings, but at a certain point, the world's not going to be that way. And that particular Montessori school, it only went up to about 5th grade. So I asked the question is, okay, well, after 5th grade, what are they going to do? These kids are used to not sitting at a desk. They're used to having 2 teachers. They're used to having a class of 10 to 15 kids. And they go, oh, we're just going to put them in middle school. And I'm like, you put them in middle school, sit them at a desk with 40 other kids in a classroom, they're not going to do well. So that's been my experience with the Montessori, which is why it wasn't really my preference, because I wanted to be able to sit this kid down and really have a basically not be told I can't tell them something, but I want to be transparent. And that's always been my teaching style. You know, with students, respect goes both ways. And if I can get down and say, hey, look, this isn't correct, but let me show you how to do this. And then the student has an aha moment. That's where the learning happens. It doesn't happen when the student's sitting there by themselves and they don't have enough experience in school, or just to know that they need to come ask you for something. It's just, you know, it's really difficult. So, you know, while my program is virtual, it is self-directed. So it goes off the student. So if you put the student on a computer and they're working along and they start to get something wrong, the computer will tell them, hey, this isn't quite right. And then you can click on a little button and a person comes up in a video and says, hey, do you need help? And the kid goes, yes, I need help. And it walks them through every piece of the problem. So now they don't need a teacher breathing down their neck or to go try to find the teacher who's dealing with another kid. They've got it right there. And then they've had several ways to even get it. So if they don't learn by video, they learn by audio. They can look at an example of another problem, or they can play a game, because a lot of kids don't like just doing rote materials, you know, rote activities. They play a game, and now they understand how to do the problem because they're playing a game and they're open and they're enjoying it. So those are kind of the differences between like a Montessori and like a virtual kind of deal.
Yeah, that brought up a great segue, because I think you and I had spoken about potentially my daughter looking into the school and finding out some of the pros and cons of the school. And how do you, what ways, because I'm pretty sure there's research and education behind, statistics behind the virtual structure that you're putting together. So how do you make sure that you avoid what happened with Montessori and keep the kids engaged, although it may be virtual, although it may be independent driven based upon the student and their learning style and things of that nature? How do we make sure that we keep them engaged and keep them motivated and keep them wanting to learn, instead of just sitting there? And because if they're responsible for coming into class and coming into you, we want to make sure that we keep them wanting to keep learning. So what methods and methodology and strategies have you guys come up with to keep people engaged and keep them motivated to continue to come to the virtual class?
Well, that's kind of a 2-part answer here. Because first of all, you know, virtual learning, and I tell everybody this, is not for everyone. Some students really need to have that person next to them. They need to have a group of kids with them to feel like they're learning. So it's not for everybody, but for the students who, you know, are able to learn independently, that's where being culturally responsive comes in. Because a lot of the time, I mean, I teach algebra. Nobody usually wants to learn algebra, right? The kids are going, well, what's this have to do with me? I remember, you know, a long time ago when I worked as an academic tutor from Kleinman's High School, and I called a parent and I said, you know, your son's failing algebra. And she said, what do you need that for? I don't care. And I'm going, oh, okay. So, you know, so I want to make sure that it's culturally responsive, because the kids aren't worried about, okay, you can use this algebra right here to code, or you can use it to build a building if that's not what they want to do. But they do care about, okay, this is parts per billion right here of lead that's in the water that you're drinking. Or, oh, you started a community garden, but that community garden, the soil has been contaminated. You want to know how many parts per billion and how bad the contamination is. Now they're tuned in like, wait a second, I thought that soil was okay. My family's been eating fruits and vegetables out of that community garden. Maybe that's why you know, people in my family are getting sick. They're tuned in. And being culturally responsive doesn't mean that, okay, their skin color determines what means, you know, because people of color and come from different places, they all have different experiences. But it means that being important to the community around them. So not only are they getting an academic education, but they're being attuned to what's going on around them, you know? So that's how they stay engaged. You can't keep them engaged if it's over here and it's something they never heard about. It's kind of like the testing they have, the state testing. it doesn't apply to them. If they read about a chandelier and, and a bidet, the kids have no idea what that is, and it doesn't apply to them. But if you talk about something like, what's happening around the corner, what happened down the street, they'll be able to tune in and really grasp what's going on. Like, for example, when I taught sixth grade in Hayward, I don't know if people know this, but Hayward had a lot of murals painted on buildings, and they were the first ones to come out and paint all the boxes that were getting graffitied on, all the electric boxes and stuff that were getting graffitied on with history about the city. So I went around and I took pictures and I showed the kids and I was like, have you seen this? Do you know where this is? And they're going, no, I don't know where that is. I'm like, this is in your city. And I'm like, do you know people are coming from around the country to look at these murals because it's talking about Russell City. Russell City was a Black city. It was the Jazz Central of the Bay Area. They're like, really? So now they're tuned in. Now they care. Now their city is a big deal. So that's how you keep them engaged.
I agree. You have to bring it to them on their level. I remember when algebra and economics and all these marketing classes became interesting, like in late high school, early colleges, when the guy was like, he's going to talk about everything, the X factor, whatever it is, the X, the C, whatever it is, as a widget. And a widget means whether you're doing life insurance, you're selling homes, you're selling T-shirts, you're selling computers, whatever it is. When I start really understanding, okay, 12C times 5X equals this, find out C and X, you're like, okay, C could be this contingency, X could be my widgets, and these things all play a part in the outcome here. Once you give it to people, like you said, on their level, whether it's in a art and jazz way, whether it's through the ecosystem, whether it's through business, and if I'm hearing you correctly, the cultural education that you guys do, it kind of enlightens you in those senses and makes sure that with the programs that you guys have, that it then harnesses all of those things into where, like you said, if the ecosystem is what your thing is, we're going to give it to you in that channel and that platform. If business is what you're into, then we're going to give it to you in that platform. Am I safe to assume is that how things work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You said it exactly. And also what we do that's different than, what you've ever seen is we help students find their passion. So, making it culturally relevant, sure, it's relevant to me. It's in my community. I can see it. But if I have no passion for it, then I'm not going to be fully engaged in learning it. Mm-hmm. So I think making students understand what their passion is and go so they can go for that goal. So they'll want to do school, because a lot of the times the kids are disconnected. They're like, in their mind, school is just a place I have to go because my mom doesn't want me in the house. Right. Or school is a place I have to go because my parents are going to get fined by the government. They think of it that way. Or some kids are like, school's a place I go to escape, or I go to eat, or I go to sleep in class because I can't sleep at home. I got too many brothers and sisters running around. So we want the students to see school not as the building, but as what their passion is, and a tool to become the better version of themselves, and to basically make something of themselves, and not let somebody tell you that because of what you look like or where you come from, you've got to do this. This is your destiny. We want to teach them that they can determine their own destiny by finding their passion, and we want to give them all the tools to do it. A lot of the time, people don't understand. The public school system was not meant to make entrepreneurs and big thinkers and all that. They were just meant to basically create citizens and give them a basic education so they can work in the, in the Industrial Revolution. So it's an antiquated system that doesn't really work. And so what we're doing is, hey, look, when you graduate, and I'm working with a few other people, it's crazy that I would like my students, when they graduate from high school, to be able to get a BA or a BS by the time they're done. So if you can imagine a student who knows their passion, has been volunteering in their community, understands what's going on, right? And has mentors that are pushing for them, and then has all the soft skills, like I know how to dress, I know, how to approach somebody, how to speak correctly, how to have etiquette. They have all those tools together. They're unstoppable. They're unstoppable. They're guaranteed to succeed because they have all the tools they need. And that's what we're trying to provide, is basically like, look, by the time you're 18 years old, an 18-year-old is still a baby. You're legally an adult, but you're still a baby. And we want them to basically not learn the hard way like the rest of us, but have their path set out in front of them. And if they make mistakes, they may fall a little bit, but they're not going to fall all the way here, because everybody's human and makes mistakes, but at least they're on the right track to getting what they want. And, breaking some of these generational, things that keep happening over and over again. I know I had some students who think, who used to think, oh, well, because all the men in my family went to jail, I'm going to go to jail. That's not true. So, my aim is to actually help them break this cycle and provide that to the community and let them know that, you know what, you can do this the way you need to do this because everybody's different, so do it your way, which is, within our scope, right? We can't get rid of school completely because we still do need it, but they can do it the way that they feel comfortable, the way that it works for them, and create their own path.
Very nice. Yeah, that's you touched on a number of different things that we've actually just gone over in a couple shows last time. One is passion driven, finding your passion, and then also education. And education is the stem to create change, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, you have to have the mindset to accept that education.
Mm-hmm.
And another factor, it has to be relatable. The education has to be relatable. It has to be something that they can use and that they know how they're going to be able to use it. That's one of the, ever since I was in school, I mean, I'm sure that's even beyond, my school ages. That's been the one factor, why students are so disengaged in school is because they don't know how that's going to relate to them after school. They don't know how they're going to utilize those skills outside of school. Like they might be, focused in, or they found their passion in this particular field. However, they have to go through all these different other curriculums that are mandated by the state that doesn't have anything to do with their future. I mean, this, truth be told, there's a lot of information you go over in school that you never even go over again ever, right? So it's essential that we do, and I think this is across the board. I think it's essential that we relook at the education that we're providing. If we know that education is the key to making these changes, to getting our children to where we want them to be, to better us, then we have to focus in on what's being taught to them and how is it being relatable to them. Is it going to help them out in their future? So I know that's a great system that you have dialed in, and then running with their passion. So the question I'm getting to is, one is, how is their passion assessed? Like, how do they find their passion within your curriculum? How do you measure that? And then two, knowing that you've had this, you've been in the public school system for 10 plus years, so you know the downfall, and the curriculum and how everything is structured in public schools. Do you see that could ever change? Do you see that do you see that ever changing, or would you suggest, how would you suggest the public or the parents making a change in those school systems to adapt the same type of curriculums that you have at your school?
Okay, so let me go back to the first part. The first question you asked me was
passion. How do you assess?
Passion.
Right.
So what I found with my research is that, you look at the whole person. Personal development is where we go. That's why we say, whole student. So we don't just look at, okay, this student is, a second grader, they're not performing at grade level, okay, they're in this group. And that's what they usually do in public school. Okay, what? Okay, they're over here. This is their track, right? So instead, we look at the whole student. So, for example, I had a student who used to shake around. He's always moving. And I'm like, why is he always moving? And realize he dances all the time outside of school. The only time he's still, and his parents nicknamed him all kinds of names because the only time he had to be still and sitting down was in the classroom. But other than that, he was dancing. So we knew that, dancing was his passion. And we have the kids look at what their passions are. So we are offering personality tests. We also have a group that we're going to put together. My husband's going to be running. It's called the Dapper Dons, which means, he's going to teach boys how to be men. So they sit down and they talk about these things. What do you like to do? What are things that are fun to you? And sometimes kids go, I don't like to do anything. I've had that happen where I'm like, there's got to be something out there, but they just haven't had enough experiences. So that means they need to be exposed to experiences. So, they need to go out to San Francisco. I had some kids in Oakland, when I worked in Oakland, they had never been to San Francisco. And I'm going, you can look at San Francisco, but they had never been there. They had never walked across the Golden Gate Bridge. So when they walked across the Golden Gate Bridge, they're like, wow. And they saw the toll booth and they're like, wow, there's just normal people who work in the booth. You can do that? Yeah, you can do that. So even though, their vision of like, oh, I want to work on the toll booth, in the toll booth because it looks fun, it just broadened their horizons and showed them that there are bigger possibilities than what they may have seen around them, or what they even think they're capable of, or what's possible. So I think, making sure they understand their personality, making sure they understand emotional intelligence. So they can understand what's going on and what people mean and how, body language is determined, all that stuff. That just adds their self-worth, and then it can help them look for their passion and understand what's going on and what could be possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
To piggyback on what Penny said about a lot of education being
Real quick, Cliff, because I wanted her to answer the second question, the second part to that one. I know you, Khalil, be ready to fire. Khalil be having them. Real quick, because I wanted to know, because you've been in the school district for 10 plus years, right? And so you know what works and what's not working. And obviously you gravitated to your school to build around what you feel is going to work. Do you ever see that change happening in the public school district? Was the second end of that question. What will be the processes that we would have to, as parents, have to take to ensure that we're out of, we make the changes from that industrial type of education, that industrial processing, process of schooling our children to adopt something similar to your program?
So I see it changing, but change is very slow. That's like asking DMV to change something, because schools are both state and federal funded. So there's a bureaucracy. So a lot of the time people are throwing money at schools and throwing money at the problem, but you get it in these hands of these people who don't really understand or even have any dealings with the students. And they're the ones telling me what I should be doing in the classroom. And so I'm going, but that doesn't work. And they're going, but this is what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, well, what? So that's going to be hard to change. But I was really inspired by CASA, and they're a great organization. They're a California Association of African-American Superintendents and Administrators. And people like Pedro Noguera, people like, his name is LeBron James. He's not the LeBron James who plays basketball, but his name is Dr. LeBron James. He's changing the narrative for a lot of Black students, teaching them math in different ways. We have Dr. Brian Brown at Stanford. He's doing Science in the City in Oakland. With students from Oakland, bringing them down there and showing them different ways. So the change is coming. It's just slow. And we have to also remember, people don't realize this, but in the public school system, 80% of the teachers are white. And a lot of these teachers have been in that school or in the school system for 30, 25, 30 years. So they're kind of set in their ways. And this distance learning with COVID is actually hastening the change. So people are realizing that a lot of teachers who are sitting back, and I can see this from experience. I had a mentor who literally would shop for purses during class while the kids were reading a story. And they're like, oh, we're done. She's like, keep reading. And that was how she taught. And I'm going, that's how you teach? And she's like, well, you actually want to change the world? Yeah, forget about it. So,
wow.
When you get people like that out and you bring the new in. So now what's happening is, with this distance learning, a lot of these people who've been kind of cruising are realizing, like, wait a second, I actually have to learn something new. I'm out. So either they're leaving and other people are coming in, but right now is the transitional time. So while they're trying to figure it out, literally, I mean, I've had other school district officials contacting me and they're going, well, I saw you open up a school. What are you doing? And I'm going, why are you asking me? You're a whole school district. But they literally don't know what they're going to do in the fall. And it is already July. Schools usually start around August, second week of August, second, third week of August, and they have no idea about what they're going to do because they have not been preparing for it. So, the change is going to be slow and people are going to resist it. I had former coworkers that are resisting it. I'm not doing that. I'm not dealing with this computer. I literally had people who I work with who wouldn't even check email because they're like, I don't want to deal with the computer. And I'm going, it's 2020. What are you talking about? You don't want to deal with a computer. So the change is going to be slow, but it's coming. And I wanted to be in the forefront of this change because I've been talking about this for years. I've been doing flipped classrooms, which means, the kids would come in and they'd grab their Chromebooks and they'd log on and they'd be working. So I'm able to pull, individual kids. That's how I was dealing with it because I'm going, there's no way I can teach 35 kids at one time. But if everybody's working and the kids who can work without my help are busy, now I can pull a student, or now I can do this. Now I have more freedom to really dial in with kids. And if you're not willing to do that and you're just sitting there collecting a paycheck, then, it's going to be a hard time changing that. So like I said, my school, I'm doing it now because it needs to happen now. It can't wait. I can't wait for the system to figure it out. And, I feel like what I'm doing is innovative, and they'll follow. They may not follow in the same exact manner, because what I'm doing, really, you really have to understand what you're dealing with. But, you know, they'll follow eventually. So we'll probably see a big change, maybe 20 years, 25 years down the line, where it's completely different. But, you know, this thing has been in place for a long time.
Change does take time sometimes.
Right.
That's one of the things Benny and I always say is one thing we can do is we can change the narrative a lot faster than we can change actual diplomacy and policies and legislation. So I think what you're doing is great because you're changing that narrative. Also, the pandemic is a tragedy by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the pandemic maybe has shed light on a school like yours, because all these schools have gone to virtual based learning for the last half of the school year. You know what I mean? They all went to virtual based learning. So I think we all had a learning curve at first, but I think we're all now on board with understanding you can learn virtually based. It will take a little bit of the parents have to be on board. The students have to be on board. There is a little bit of independence, but I think we've proven that it can happen. Now, a couple of things that I want to say is to what Benny said. You're right, man. I remember I took oceanography and astronomy. And although oceanography and astronomy were cool classes, don't get me wrong, and I can point out the Big Dipper and Cassiopeia and Orion's Belt, I'm not an astronomer. I'm not an astronaut. I'm not an oceanographer. I don't do anything in the ocean. I won't even swim in the ocean. Unless it's a swimming pool, you're not getting me in that body of water, period. So I think that the level of education, the curriculum, does need to be more practical and things that are applicable. If you want to take, I mean, like you said, some of these industrial science-based classes, it's cool and all to learn all of that, but sometimes there may be other curriculum that's applicable to my everyday life that I can learn. So that's something else. But what I wanted to ask is, do you then have the autonomy with your school to teach different curriculum outside of things that may not be applicable? Do you have to follow a certain type of curriculum because that's what is mandated from up here? Or does your school now have the autonomy to say, you know what, we're K through 12, but we may not be talking about dissecting frogs. We may not be talking about a beaker at the bottom and what I pull out of that beaker at the bottom of the ocean, or mixing potions or whatever it is. Do you have that autonomy? And if so, what things will you fill into those gaps that you feel that will be applicable moving forward for somebody to actually use an application in their life?
Well, yes, it'll be, what's the beauty of it being an independent school means that we're not regulated in that manner where you have to do this, but I want to prepare the students by making sure it's standard based, because that's what they're going to deal with. So if they get it, for example, if they graduate, from high school and they've gotten the AA, then, and they want to move on to, college, there's certain things they're going to be expected to know. Or if something comes up and they decide, you know what, this virtual learning is not for me, I want to go back to the classroom, we don't want them to skip a beat. So so for example, like you were talking about oceanography. Okay, that's cool, but I don't care about the ocean. But if you live by the ocean, I grew up right by the ocean. I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. A dead whale washed up. What's up with that? So if I can teach it to you in that way and check off a box saying you took oceanography and I taught you oceanography through something you cared about, then I have the autonomy to put it on your transcript saying, you know what, this person took this class, it's done in a way where they can understand it and they were interested and they were engaged and they took it for 6 weeks, 7 weeks. I could check a box and say they got that information. So I have the autonomy to do that. Okay. And even some of these other virtual programs, they're still like, okay, you have to do this semester, you have to have this, you have to take this, you have to take that. Even though some of these classes are required, like you have to take math, you have to take, English, it can be done in a way. I have the ability to be flexible and do it in a way that's different or that interests the child versus you have to do this in the exact manner they say that you have to do it in.
Okay. Real quick, Benny, a piggyback question on that is then we just got the school schedule for next year. And they're saying that elementary school kids will go, and this is in Solano County, but elementary school kids will go 4 days a week. Wednesday will be the day off, and they'll do them in shifts from 8:30 to 11. And then you got some people who are doing them from 11:30 to 3. So you're getting 2.5 hour shifts. Now for the secondary schools, which is the high schools, they're going to meet 2 days a week. So my question is, can someone take your school in combination? Because as you and I discussed, I would love for my daughter to be able to graduate high school with some upper level education as well, with some advanced education, potentially an AA degree. So could my daughter then do her 2 days at her school, but still be interested in then attending your school and getting those extra credits and that extra education? Or is it one or the other?
No, they could do both. The only difference that I caution is that if I'm giving the high school diploma, I can accept whatever she has. On the other hand, the school may not be so happy about that and they want your child full time. So therefore they'll say, oh, we're not going to accept those credits from this place. Or like when I was in high school, I took college classes and they told me, the counselor told me, well, I'm only going to accept if you take music classes or dance classes. I'm not going to accept math classes, which she's not supposed to do that. She's supposed to accept any classes I take, but she as a person is deciding that I'm not going to take this and therefore changing my narrative for the school. So, you're going to bump heads with, what the public school will allow or what one person in a public school will allow versus me having the ability to say, okay, you've completed all these requirements. Here's a transcript from all aspects academy. You can move on.
Okay.
So even with college, you have to get an approval. If they go to the local community college, people don't know this, but in California, as long as you're in 9th grade, you can take any community college classes for free. All you have to do is pay for the books. But you have to get, if you're in the public school and you want to do that, you have to get a signature from somebody saying that it's okay for you to do that and we're going to accept those credits once you do it. If you go do it independently and come back, they have the right to say, no, we're not accepting these because you didn't get permission. While I have the right to say, hey, you know what? That's awesome. Let me help you out. Here you go.
Okay.
Very nice. So, speaking about the curriculum and we've dived in, deep about your processes for assessing a child.
Mhm.
How does someone, say, put a hand up and say they want to go to your school? What's the process for enrolling a child into your school that is, say, getting into kindergarten versus high school? Are there any differences, and what would that process look like?
Well, for kindergarten, it's pretty much the same, but for kindergarten, there'd be a lot more, the parent coming in and kind of verifying certain things because kindergartners don't know what school is. Usually kids go to kindergarten and it's like all fun and games, and then they hit 1st grade and they realize, traditionally they have to be there all day instead of just 3.5 hours, and they're going, oh man. So, the parent would have to take more of a leadership role in kind of guiding the student. So that's a little bit different, but basically, you say, hey, I want to go to your school. We do an assessment initially. The kid comes on, what do you know? What does the child know? The parent, what have you experienced? What is the issue that you notice? Because sometimes parents will notice something with their child and they'll go, oh, that's probably normal. And then it's like, wait a second, this isn't normal because now you've come to me and I'm going, that's not normal because the average, 5-year-old should be doing this. So let's check into that. Let's see what's going on. And so we determine exactly where they are academically and then socio-emotionally, and then we have them take a little personality test. So for the little kids, it'll be a little bit different than if you're a high schooler, but there's a personality test. And there's also, what they want to be. Because, little kids, they'll say, oh yeah, I want to be this, I want to be that, to kind of see where they're at. And then after that, it's a matter of sitting down with the parent and the student and picking out curriculums. They can try out different curriculums, or depending on what I see. So for example, if, I see something in a student where I'm going, this student might have dyslexia because they're decoding this way, or they're seeing the numbers backwards. That's when I then reach out to my special education department and say, hey, look, this is kind of screwy. What's going on here? And then she'll report back to me and say, hey, you know what? Let me link up with that parent and that kid and let's test them and see what's going on. And then we go from there and create a learning plan. So what we do is basically, okay, you're here, you're at kindergarten. Where do we see, what goals do we have? Short-term goals. By the end of the school year, you should be able to write a sentence. You should be able to add small numbers. You should be able to add single-digit numbers. You should be able to count to 30. Those are all California state standards, national standards that the students should hit. And then where do you want to be as far as, if you're a little bit older, you're going to say, okay, well, where do I want to be as a student? Am I using my time correctly? Sometimes people think, oh, no school, yay, hooray,
Right.
I could just get up at 1 o'clock. No, getting up at 1 p.m. is not going to be helpful. So, putting those things in place. So that's the final piece of it. And then their learning plan gets developed. We move along, and then every other month, we're looking at that learning plan and going, okay, are we on track? Okay, good. And the parents can see they're getting sent a weekly report if the kids are on track. So that's pretty much the process. And then if something comes up where they start the learning plan and they start the curriculum and they're like, I don't like this. We go, okay, let's stop. What don't you like about it? All right, well, let's look at this. Let's choose a different curriculum. Maybe let's try it this way. And if they still are having problems, we look into more things. Okay, what's really going on? So we're able to kind of personalize everything down to the nugget, and they have an open dialogue with me. There's no, oh, you've got to wait, or you've got to get through this class before you can do this or do. No, that's the whole process right there.
You know what I do like about it is the child, the children, the kids, the high school kids, whatever it is, they still maintain a certain amount of ownership because you have to take ownership in your school. Let's just be honest about it. So they still have a certain amount of ownership that they would still have as they were still going in physically. But it gives the parents a certain amount of accountability as well. And that's what I really like, because I'll tell you as a parent, I got 16, 10, and almost 9. And I've been guilty a couple of days of coming home exhausted from work, and you let the school do the work. You know what I mean? Oh, the school is doing stuff with them. Did you guys do your homework? And yeah, I did my homework, and that is what it is. It gives the parents a little more accountability with their children's maturation, which I think we all need to take more accountability with that. It's too many parents who get them to school, pick them up from school, and that's pretty much their extent of the interaction with school. They don't, right. They're not part of PSA. They're not helping out with homework, none of that. They just pick them up, drop them off. And I think there needs to be a better relationship between the school, the scholastic system, and the parents. And I think this does that. So I kudos to you for that. I love the idea. Congratulations. But my question is this, with all that being said, what if a child is in the first grade or second grade? And like I work, a lot of parents, they go to work, you know what I mean? What have you guys taken in for accountability, or into consideration, I should say, for if I want my child to go to your school, but I go to work every day, and I can't just leave my 8-year-old at home every day. How do I then, what is the situation, or what's the workaround in that situation for someone who sees the value in your school, they see the value in the curriculum and the education, they see the value in the staff and your commitment to your community, but I just need somebody to watch my kid during the school time, which is kind of what school does as well. What do we do in that situation?
So I've been in talks with different daycare providers. So I know specifically a daycare provider that my daughter used to go to. She had asked me to do something like this actually probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And she was like, well, I know it's a crazy idea, but what would you think about that? Because these parents don't want to leave their kids at home. And now, it's coming full circle where I'm going, this is where they need to be. So if you are a daycare provider and you can have 12 kids, I think it's during COVID, it's about 12 kids. And if the kids have to stay together, you're not going to really mind having an 8 or 9-year-old that's working on their tablet, doing their homework or doing their classwork while you're dealing with younger kids. So that's a possibility. They don't have to be a learning coach, and meaning, they don't have to take on the role of a parent. Like, oh, did you do your homework? What do you do? They don't have to take on that role, because that once again falls on us. Mm-hmm. And we have people who are learning coaches who will be looking out, but they have some place to be that's safe, and somebody to hold them accountable. Like, okay, you're here, you're doing this. All right, your mom doesn't have to worry, your dad doesn't have to worry. And then I was also looking at co-working spaces. I'm currently partnering with CoBiz in Richmond, and they're looking to partner with me to open up their doors and say, hey, your student can come in here and work in this office, free Wi-Fi for a few hours or whatever, they work out. But there's also somebody always there. When they come in the door, you got to, put in a little code. They come in, it's safe from the outside. So, right.
Maybe a relationship with the library or the Boys and Girls Club or the local Salvation Army, places like that as well.
Exactly. And those aren't open right now. So that's, that's a tough spot. Because I know for a fact when I worked in Vallejo, a lot of the kids, the library is right down the street from the school. So a lot of the kids I tell, don't hang out on the corner, go to the library. They're like, oh, but I want to go to Starbucks to use the internet. I'm like, go to the library to use the internet, because if you're in there, you're safe. There's adults there. And so a lot of the kids didn't realize that. They're like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, you can print. I'm like, they charge you a nickel to print. And they're like, a nickel to print? That's it? And I'm like, yeah. So, eventually they became like too large of a group, and the library had to shut them down and say, you can't come in here and goof off and eat and stuff, but you can come here and study, use the Wi-Fi, and be safe. So once the libraries and everything open back up to that, definitely those are things that can happen.
Very nice, very nice. And Khalil brought an interesting topic, the accountability of the parents and someone being there to watch the children. And obviously, because of the dynamics of every family, this is not going to be suitable currently for every parent.
Mhm.
Because like I said, there are two parents that may have to go work. There may be one parent that has the flexibility to be home to watch your child. So what have you seen? What type of family structures have you seen gravitating to your school? What type, basically, what's kind of things that we had discussed on our call before? What are the family dynamics as far as workers? Are you seeing more entrepreneurs? Are you seeing more um, two home, well, two parent homes that are gravitating towards your school? What are the dynamics that are you seeing right now?
So I am seeing a lot of people who are working from home, and people think that it's really easy to work from home because I can just watch my kids, and everybody's finding out now that that's the hardest thing ever when your
Yes,
kids
it
running
is.
around and you're like, I'm on a call, and then I mean, literally I was on a business call a couple months ago, and the kid's running by in his underwear right behind the guy talking, and we're going, it's funny because we had not seen him in that light, all the camera goes off and he comes back and he's serious. But everybody has experienced that if you've worked from home. So I'm finding a lot of those parents enjoy having the kids do their curriculum and be engaged, because the kid can pretty much use the gamification feature and be playing a math game and be occupied. So those parents are looking at it. Parents who travel a lot. I know I have a few. My husband has a few business partners who travel 6 to 7 times out of the year. So they're constantly pulling their kids out of school. And when their kids miss school, then they get a packet of independent study. And it's like, okay, they've got to write a journal, but they're not in class and they're missing out. So those type of families are like, ooh, that means that when we fly to Mexico or we fly to Hong Kong, my kids can still be on track with their studies. So I'm seeing those people. I'm also seeing families who have kids who are entertainers, or they're training as athletes. So if you have a mini Tiger Woods in your house and he just wants to play golf for most of the day, he can do that. Or if you have a daughter who's a gymnast and she's doing gymnastics for 8 hours a day, she doesn't have to worry about going to school. She can get up at 6 a.m. and do all her gymnastics she wants for 8 hours, and then come home and work on her schoolwork and still be on track. So I'm seeing those families. I'm also seeing a lot of families who have a considerable amount of money, and instead of them having to reach out and go to Kumon and go to all these different places, they're like, wait, you can actually, the work you give my kid will actually count towards school, and they can graduate early, and they can, move faster than if they were in a normal school. Those people. So I've seen a lot of them too. And the second group of people are people who have students who have learning disabilities. They're not really getting serviced right now. So those special needs students, normally they're going to, a special day class, where even if they're, in high school, they're in the same classroom all day. They're getting that one-on-one attention. They're getting that one aide who's sitting next to them all day. So some parents, they can't do that. They can't sit next to that kid all day, but you have, a learning coach who will. You have somebody virtually come on. You have somebody on video who you're like, the kid needs this help. The kid's going to respond to the video. So you have those people who are looking for that. And a lot of the time, even when school was in session and was normal, they weren't getting that attention either. So I have those families, that are curious about my program.
Nice. It seems like it's a very
Great.
wide demographic. And look, you and I have talked in depth. I think we talked the other day for about an hour or so. So I want people to know, who are listening, who will tune in later on, when Jasmin talks about fast tracking them and getting them and accepting certain curriculums and making sure it's transferable, she doesn't mean she's doing it in a fast way. She's still giving a great level of education. She's doing it very comprehensively. It's just that she's going to make sure that our kids succeed. And this isn't no kid left behind type stuff. Her curriculum is specifically designed to make sure each one of our kids succeed based upon how they learn, how fast they learn, the way the styles that they learn. And I think it's imperative that each of us, whether you go to a school like this, or you continue to go to your own school, we need to take more accountability in our kids' education. We need to talk to our educators in our school systems and make sure things are more tailored, make sure things are
Right.
more applicable in life. But with that being said, Jasmin, how do we get a hold of you? How does somebody who's listening, who's going to go to our YouTube page later, who's going to go to our Facebook page later, how do they get a hold of you? If you can say it, maybe video, post it in our page, but what's your email address? What's your phone number? What's the web address to your school? How can somebody get in contact with you to find out more information? Because this is crucial. I think we all need to be more mindful of education. As one of me, empowerment is education in my estimation. I used to do seminars and people come in like, where's the food at? And I'm like, man, I'm gonna feed you something better than food. I'm gonna empower you. And empowerment is knowledge, and knowledge is power. So, and that's through education. So if you could share your information so we can further educate our community about what you do and get some more students into a wonderful program like this.
Okay, so you can email me at jaspectsacademy.com. My website is allaspectsacademy.com, and you can reach me by phone, 510-925-4545. And that's anytime, email, text. I can get texts, all that. Feel free to go to the website, check it out. There's a lot more detail. If you have specific questions, reach out to me. I'm open. I enjoy, answering questions. I know I actually was thinking about what you just said, Cleo, about parents, being able to take accountability. I was a single mom for a very long time, so I get it. And I was a teacher, and I'd come home, and if I'm teaching all day at school, and I worked 2 jobs, so I'm like, and my daughter is like, okay, well, I got to do this, and I'm like, so even as a teacher, it's difficult to keep track of your students and their progress. So that's why my program actually has built-in on-demand and real-time tracking. So you can literally log on anytime and see where your student is in their courses, what they're nailing, what they're not nailing, how long they've been on the program. When they said, oh yeah, I've been doing homework all day. Really? Let me log in. Oh, you've been on for 2 minutes. And then you went to YouTube for 5 hours. We give the parents that all those tools to really nail them, like, oh yeah, and you was doing this and this. No, you weren't. So that's the really cool part about the program, is that you can really keep tabs. You can be at work on your lunch break and go, I wonder what they're doing. And you can log in and have the ability to see what they're doing at that exact moment.
Nice.
And then you also get automated weekly reports on, okay, this is how much they got done. This is the expected time they're supposed to complete it in. If it took them 5 hours to answer one question, something's a little screwy. And so, that's one way that makes it really easy as a parent for you to be like, okay, you don't have to wait till the progress report comes out in the middle of the quarter and your kid's already failing. That was the problem I had as a teacher. It's like, okay, this kid is failing, but I've been trying to call the parent's busy. I understand they work 12 hours a day, they got 4 kids, but I want to let you know your son's failing or your daughter's failing, and you can't get to it until finally your schedule lets up, and now final grades are out and your kid's getting an F for the semester. And you're like, whoa, what happened? How come nobody's called me? I'm like, we did call you. We sent this home, we sent that home, but we're all human. The world's moving way faster than it did when we were in school back in the day. So, this is a specific piece that I felt, parents needed. And I heard it expressed over and over again. Well, can somebody text me? Could somebody tell me when my kid's failing? And can you, maybe just, like if he's getting a C, it's okay. But if he's getting an F or D, I'm like, okay, but that's really your responsibility because it's your kid. But it's my responsibility to let you know, but it is your responsibility. So, we're just making it easier. So you could check in on your kid. You could pop in and say, okay, they've been on this program and they've been on this and they're doing well, or they're not doing so well, or they asked for help and they got help from the teacher and they were on a video call. They'll see all the activity the student's doing once they're logged into the system.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, and that's one of the things that a lot of parents fail to recognize is that schools aren't just they're not a daycare. They're you have to take some responsibility in the education. You have to take some accountability in your own child's education. And Khalil, you mentioned that earlier. It's just not just dropping your kid off and wait until the report card come out. And the first thing you're complaining about is the teacher. You're gonna, well, what is the teacher doing? What is the school doing? No, it's what about you? What are you doing? You have to be actively participating in your child's education. One, just to make sure that they're getting taught correctly. It's you don't know what somebody's motive is. You don't know what's being taught to your child, and you come to find out that it's they're getting misinformation or about a particular subject, or they're getting somebody else's narrative and not the narrative that's going to benefit them and benefit your family. So you have to take some accountability and understand it goes back to it takes a village to raise a child, and you are that village. That home structure is that village. And then and the tools that you have set up right now in your school system, it's incredible because it does make that accountability much easier, a much easier process. One, because they just log on and see exactly what's going on. So they don't have to be surprised at PSA meeting or at the end of the school quarter when they get the report card.
Exactly, exactly. And for the little ones too, you're going to be more hands-on. You are your child's first teacher. So for the K through third grade, you're going to be there, writing letters with them. And maybe your kid isn't doing so well, making their A's so well or their B's. So you're going to be the one to sit down with that little plate of sand and having the kid use their finger to draw, or that's going to be happening at home. That's not going to necessarily be happening in the classroom. It'll be happening virtually too. But the kid does need that person there, that learning coach. You're not a teacher. I've heard a lot of parents say, "Well, I'm not a teacher." It's okay. You're just a coach. You're just there to support their learning, support their inquiry. I've studied for years to be a teacher, so I don't expect them to understand pedagogy or any of that stuff. It's not just, oh yeah, you just hand out a bunch of worksheets and they're fine. No, there's a method to the madness. So they're not expected to know all that, but you are expected to do your part as a parent to help your kid learn. Yeah. So that's just what it is.
I think the partnership process must continue. I remember I used to write papers with my mom through high school and get advice in college. Like, hey mom, how does this sound? And I remember specifically, she was writing this, I was writing this, she's helping me with this one sentence. And I used a bunch of different synonyms already for specifically, or, and I'm like, I don't want to say specifically again. And she said, how about namely? And I was like, ooh, it just sounded so good to me. That paper just went to a whole nother level because it was like, namely, da-da-da-da-da. And it just, so for me, I always use my sharpening. Benny and I always say iron sharpens iron. So, and that iron comes in many forms. That iron comes in the form of your spouse. That iron comes in the form of your business partner, like Benny and myself. It comes in the form of sometimes your children are helping you sharpen your iron. You know what I mean? Your parents, all these different people. And it's up to us to continue that partnership. That's a partnership and a commitment that we all should have to our children. And a partnership and commitment I should have now to you, because you've committed to my child to help with that partnership. So I should then reciprocate with that same commitment, not only to my child, but now to you as well. So I love, once again, what you're doing. If anything, this was a public service announcement for all of us to realize we all can do a little bit better when it comes to our child's education. It's not just Jasmin's job to teach my kid because she's my child's educator or the administrator at the school, whatever it may be. So let's all take some ownership. We're coming upon the hour. So Benny, unless you have anything else to say.
I just want to thank Jasmin again for, making the time. And this was crucial, just to have this conversation about education, because, that is the common denominator with getting us to a better position in making the change that we need to see in our communities. That's, you ask anyone across the board, any public speaker, any politician, anyone that we've actually had on the show, and the number one factor is education, and starting there. And so we got to recognize that and take responsibility as a family unit, as responsible parents, and adapting to that structure that you have now set up, because now it's really no excuse, even with COVID and going on right now in the pandemic. You have a great opportunity to shift and utilize the technology that's there. That's one of the things that I've been pushing since day one. It's unfortunate that we are in this situation. However, there's opportunities in every situation. So the technology has already been there. So now it's just pivot and shift to what the market is now dictating. You can get a great education all online, and not skip a beat. However, actually you get advance much faster with this process. So definitely look into the school. Have a conversation with Jasmin. You will definitely be enlightened. I have a soon to be 5-year-old, and I've already been talking to my wife about, starting the program at kindergarten. So yeah, reach out, check the website, and just thank you again, Jasmin, for coming in, making time for the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah. I mean, you guys are awesome, and you're world changers. So it's my pleasure.
Thank you. Let's not let this be the last time. Let this be the first, but not the last time. And I do have one question from Artie Malhotra. She says, are you hiring? She is in the education industry as well. Are you hiring? And if so, can I let her know to contact you through your contact information that you put aboard? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes, please. Have her contact me. So, you know, we're planning on opening late August. And so we're still getting things in place. We're still looking for people who are learning coaches to help kids along, and for people to help out with, you know, getting these kids where they need to get. So we need a whole community. So I'm definitely open to hiring. So contact me by email, Archie, you know, or give me a phone call.
Perfect. And I want everybody, once again, this has been Jasmin Johnson, who is the founder of All Aspects Academy. Go to allaspectsacademy.com. You can give her a call. You can also email her at jasmindurham@gmail.com. But please look into what she's doing. It is a great thing for our community. For all of you who have tuned in or will be watching this later on our YouTube channel or our Facebook channel, we thank you for taking time to educate yourself. Once again, this is our goal. This is our mission statement, is to empower our community and give back in ways that we know how to do it. And education is one of the ways. So Jasmin, thank you. Benny, thank you. Go to our Facebook page, go to our YouTube page, go to Benny's personal page, go to Jasmin's page, go to my page, hit the thumbs up button, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. More content to come to you. We'll be at you this Sunday at 2:30 with Dr. Gethsemane Moss to further along our community with in-depth conversation and to continue to empower you guys. But thank you for tuning in, everybody. And Jasmin, thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.